Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 12 of the anime series, Fuuka. For all intents and purposes, the season finale, and this was pitch perfect. This was beautiful. I absolutely loved this. I love that we still spent some time for the first half of the episode seeing Fuuka really mulling over what she wanted to do next. You know, she's really harboring this kind of reluctance because of her feelings for you. And finally, that bread is broken, and of all characters, the one to do this for her is Koyuki. I thought this was a perfect opportunity, bringing these characters together after Koyuki had made her move on you, and he had turned her down, and I just felt like this is really the other leg that needed to drop, to solidify in Fuuka's mind. She can go back. She can come back to the band. She doesn't have to be so scared of being around the guy she likes, loves, that kind of thing, because he loves her. He loves her too. And but even then, it still wasn't quite enough to convince her. Even with that meeting between she and Koyuki, Yu has been going back to her house every day, apparently, basically running into Suzuka, Fuuka's mother, who's giving excuse after excuse after excuse. Oh, she's here, she's there, she whatever, she's not home. And it's just, I'm surprised that Yu is not having his last nerves broken at that point. I know after a while I kind of get tired of chasing my tail, in a sense, the way he has had to do. But this is how much it means to him. This is how much Fuuka means to him. This is his love. It's not just the love that he has for Fuuka, but it's, as he describes to her, this is what made him write his song. This is why he loves so much being in this band, something he never would have considered. He was kind of pressured into by Fuuka. Everyone was, that kind of thing. He's fallen so much in love with it. He's kind of the embodiment of the fallen moon, falling for the love of the music, the love of the friendship, the love of the bandmates, learning and creating music, practicing, trying to perfect that music, and then having the girl of his dreams in Fuuka singing the song he created. This is what his drive is, this driving force, this impetus to keep after Fuuka and try to appeal to her, because he knows how much she loved it. And if he can just appeal to her, he can bring her back. But not, again, as I say, without Koyuki coming in there and saying, in not so many words, I mean, I was half expecting her to say, I made my move on you and it didn't work, but rather does she say, well, she dumped him, that kind of thing, just trying to save face. That's what we all do in life. That's the human condition, is to try to give ourselves, even when things go awry, give ourselves the best possible outlook for any downfall we may encounter, we may face, any hurdles that, throw travesty our way. There's always seeking the silver lining, and this gives Koyuki enough of a leg up for herself, for feeling well about herself, having been turned down. She realizes that the focus for herself is anew. We're going to look back at the music. She's designing like Alice in Wonderland bunny soldier kind of outfits and things. I was wondering what the hell that was about. Now we see toward the end, they show a montage, and okay, she's apparently performing on stage like this. I'm not exactly sure. She's got a show she's made. I don't know. It was kind of odd. I'm not sure what that was about, but to see her following some aspect of her dream, even in spite of losing out on you, and realizing for the better part of herself that you would never really love her. He already has feelings for Fuuka. She had to make it right. She was the one who felt responsible, because, without her interventions, without her trying to go after you and all of their past and everything that had built up between them, even though it was very much one-sided, requited love, unrequited love, she had to make it right. She had to, because she was the one. I mean, let's call back. She was the one who put it out there on a live TV broadcast and open a whole can of worms for the Fallen Moon in their first performance. she rightfully so felt responsible, and she was the driving force to implant that seed in Fuuka's mind. In spite of this reluctance, you can go back and enjoy yourself. You can go back to this. You and I are never going to be a thing. But it's still, like I said, took you going to the 11th hour, right when they've been given another opportunity to perform live in the same venue as they had before. I mean, it gets down to the wire. He goes back to her place, again talks to her mother. She went out for a walk because it's her day off, and he's like, okay, where the hell could she be? And I also like, by the way, when he had gone over there the night before, and they're both like, Fuuka's walking home, he's walking home, and they pass each other as ships in the moonlight, not even observing each other, are right within reach in a sense. I thought that was a really poignant moment that, she's walking over the bridge, he's walking down the street. But he does go back, and when he realizes, okay, she's not at home, where the hell could she be? He had actually taken to dropping off a very personal letter to Fuuka. I don't know if he gave, like, the DVD of their performance to Suzuka, Fuuka's mother. I'm assuming that's what he did to instill in Fuuka's mother that, this is what we've been up to. This is what we've been able to accomplish. And look at how much love your daughter has for it. This is something, again, very poignant that Suzuka points out when Fuuka comes home. You seem to be the happiest I've seen you in a long time in this performance. You're smiling. I haven't seen you smile in a while. You seem so depressed. And like internalized, as opposed to here you are singing and performing, and you look like the light of your life is on fire. You're just burning with joy and passion. And where is this version of my daughter? And so, of course, he thinks about it. I thought it was really strange, but I guess with the title Fair Wind, and talking about going by the flow of the wind, it was another poignancy kind of scene that when he just begins to realize where she might be at the rooftop of the school again, where he's found her time and time again, that gust of wind knocks him back. And just as a brief aside, anyone who knows that I have read the manga up until the 10th episode, Turning Point, the manga goes in an entirely different direction that I was not at all pleased with. There were times throughout the course of this episode, for those manga readers who know what I'm referencing, the biggest change that there is between the manga and the anime that I was very unhappy with. There were times throughout the course of this when, Yu is going after Fuuka and Fuuka's going back and forth to work, where I hesitated. I'm like, they could still pull that out of their ass. They could still align this whole anime to what happens in the manga, and I'm not going to be one bit happy. They could even flip-flop it, rather than what happens in the manga with the character specifically. Maybe it will be somebody else, and most notably, like I say, the whole episode you have Yu and Fuuka going back and forth places, and I'll leave it at that, very cursorily so as not to spoil it, but I was just unhappy with the manga, and this anime gave me such a makeup, such an apology for having read the manga up to the point that I did, because it was just pitch perfect. He finds her on that roof, as he much assumes, and she's kind of, again, reluctant to admit to herself how she feels. She still doesn't realize, even though Koyuki said, I understood how you felt. I understood his feelings, and that's why I'm done with him. She still isn't sure how he feels. And this is where he comes clean. He says, and I love how he kind of tiptoes around it, but then he just blurts it out. He's like, I really love the music. I really love the band. I want you to be part of it. I don't want to lose you. And then realizing he's not getting it across, he says, I love you. And again, he kind of backpedals right after that. He's like, I want you to be a part of the band, you know, if you want to. You know, I just love it. There is such a realism to that, where, I mean, as frail, imperfect human beings, we are so terrified sometimes to put ourselves out there, even on such a basic level of trying to make a friend, of trying to profess one's love, you know. And that sequence perfectly captured that, especially with her reaction, because she's been harboring this reluctance for so long, yet she has just bold-facedly been told, all your dreams are coming true. The guy she loves her. And you can kind of see like she's elated, but at the same time, because all she's known for the last little while since splitting with the band has been staying as far away from them as possible because of those feelings, it's kind of like the very last hurdle she needs to get over to admit it and say it out loud as well. And she does, and I love how she she doesn't hug him. She walks up to him and smacks her head into his chest and just like lays her head there, and then they embrace, and it was just really sweet and beautiful and cute. It was absolutely adorable. And it actually made me kind of misty-eyed, which I did not expect, because as I've spoken about with you guys back and forth in the comments, I mean, a lot of this series was I leaning more toward Koyuki as far as being, you know, who you seemed more well fitted toward. But by the end, the way it played out, I'm glad there were no minced words. I'm glad there was honesty between Koyuki and you know. They came clean with each other as well, and they realized it's not going to work. It can't be a thing the way Koyuki hopes it would be, which is sad. I mean, but that's c'est la vie. That's a part of life. We don't always get what we want. We can't always be with whom we most wish we could. In the case of this anime, it works out that you had a backup. In a sense. And I leave that to you guys to argue in the comments or wherever you want, if you're so imposed, which one was the backup between Koyuki and Fuuka. Lest we forget Sarah. You know, she was all kinds of awesome. She kind of was digging on you a little bit as well. Mikasa as well. Let's put Mikasa in there as well. Who do you think was the backup in the relationship for you? But I loved it. I loved it. I love that they came together, and just in the nick of time, as Nachi, which is typical of his character, he's losing his mind. He's freaking out. Where are they? Where are they? We got to go on stage very soon. They just get there and they perform. We hear Fuuka's song again, and again, you know, talking over all the music. Kind of a pain in the ass. That really kind of annoys me and irks me. I just want to hear the songs. But I mean, at least the dialogue that was being spoken over the music was again poignant to the overall effect, the end of the series as it was. And immediately thereafter, while there was one brief moment that kind of caught me off guard, where like they show an empty hallway in the performance venue place, and like it sounded like the song skipped, like they skipped ahead, and it just wasn't flush. The edit wasn't flush. It you know, it was kind of, it took me aback a little bit. But then of course Fuuka takes the opportunity to kind of implant that seed in the audience. What is it you most desire? You know, when confronted with that question, what do I want for myself in the future? What do you want to do? Because what I wanted to do, and I didn't know it until someone very close to me pointed me in that direction, was pursue music. And of course she shares that look with you. He smiles, and I'm just, my heart is warmed, and I'm loving it. I'm grinning, I'm smiling, I'm feeling so happy. And then she performs his song. And it just, I got goosebumps. I was like, this, yes. You know, this is exactly what I hoped for this anime, especially after reading the manga. I couldn't have been more happy. But then they actually make me even happier, because of course you have hedgehogs. They are elated with the musical prowess, the sound, and the vocals that the Fallen Moon can produce. And arguably so, this re-inflames their own passions, and they come back. They reunite. they come back together, much as the Fallen Moon needed to. They got the band back together, Blues Brothers reference, and they too are rocking out by the end. Hedgehogs, Mark II or whatever you want to call it. They are back together. They're performing. The Fallen Moon is back together. They're performing. Koyuki is following her dreams, whatever the rabbit suits might amount to. I don't know. But she's happy, so I'm happy, even though I don't quite know what it's about. And by the end, of course, we find Fuuka and Yu back at that shrine, and she playfully asks him, "What were you praying for?" She gets a look at him, and then he's so concentrated on that in that moment. "What were you praying for?" "Well, I'm hoping I can play the bass even better than I've gotten to at this point. And I really, really hope we can be together forever." She's kind of like, her reaction almost says to me, like, she's like, "You wasted a wish on that? I'm not going anywhere." But, of course, we end with that final line, "From now on, let's be together forever." And, again, because of the manga thing, I'm like, oh, don't ruin this with the season 2 where they do what they did in the manga, please. End all be all, this finale made me super duper happy. It gave me everything I wanted. I mean, we still got to see the internal conflict that Fuuka was going through, that she needed the recognition. She needed the understanding that Koyuki was there in this episode to give her. If she had not played a part, if she had not participated to that effect, I think there would have been something lost in translation. I don't think it would have been as believable and effectual as it was without Koyuki's input. So I'm so glad that she was there. She was the one to, again, plant that seed in Fuuka that you can actually have your cake and eat it too. You just need to follow your heart. And of course, you never backing down, being aggressive in his wanting to appeal to Fuuka, knowing what her truest, best future could amount to if she'd only open herself to it again, brought them all back together. I loved it. I have loved this entire series from the first episode, even though the very first encounter you has with Fuuka, I was kind of like, okay, this bitch is crazy, when she like tosses his phone and smashes it thinking he's trying to get, panty shots of her and everything. But that just speaks to her nature as being vivacious and lively and I guess it was supposed to be a comedic thing, but I was just kind of like, get away from this crazy. But she immediately endeared me with her love and passion for music, with her love for, having hard copy CDs rather than like digital downloads and all that kind of stuff, which is very much how I prefer. I prefer to own DVDs. I prefer to own CDs and even going back to VHS tapes, which I grew up with, cassette tapes and all these things. If you're young enough not to know what any of that is, Google is a thing, or ask your parents. But, I just love how sort of buoyant she was in her personality. How, again, vivacious, how lively. Her passions, she wore her passions on her arm. And she really swept you up in this romance. It was quite the opposite from the more cliched, the prince coming in and sweeping the woman off her feet. Fuuka very much was the one to sweep you off his feet. And getting this band together, I mean, it fell together probably more easily than it might have in the real world for the convenience of this being an anime, being a fictional story and everything like that. But all of the sort of hurdles they faced were real, even if they did seem, whether, condensed timeline-wise or just, again, for the convenience of playing out as a 12-episode anime. There were certain hurdles that they seemed to get over a little easier than might be believable, especially you with playing the bass. He'd never touched a bass in his life, and he learned fairly quickly how to play it. Not that people aren't capable of doing so, just because I myself had a electric guitar for a while, and, the most I got out of was pling, 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 after weeks of trying to play the damn thing. Doesn't mean that happens to everybody. You picked up that bass, and he owned it. And all of these characters, they owned their dreams. And I can only wish and hope and pray for the same being able to be said, the same being afforded to all of us in some way, shape, or form. I really hope that this anime, much for every other viewer out there who may encounter this video, they also, as I did, found it inspiring. Heartwarming, inspiring, fun, and just awesome all around. That was the experience I had. The most enjoyable experience watching this anime. By the way, F the manga. F the manga up until this point. Or the divisive point in the story. Which I may still go back and read. We'll see. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Whether you are a manga reader, whether you're coming off the history of having read that, or you've been strictly an anime-only viewer and everything like that. I'd love to hear from you. You know, what your thoughts were on the series on whole, your thoughts on this finale episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it somewhere in the middle? Did you think it was average? Love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.